Imagine if a single book could completely free you from a habit, one you've been desperate to escape. A habit that millions, literally millions worldwide, have kicked with its help. It sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? Especially for something as deeply ingrained as smoking often is. Welcome to the Gist and Gab podcast. Today, we're really getting into Allen Carr's incredibly influential book, The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. Now, many of you might have heard of it, maybe even know someone who quit using it. But we want to go a bit deeper today, really understand the thinking behind his bold claims. Like, why does he believe it's so easy, and how does he just completely dismantle this whole idea of willpower when it comes to quitting?
And I think what makes Carr's view so powerful is his own story. I mean, this wasn't some academic just studying addiction. Allen Carr was a heavy chain smoker for, 33 years? Smoking up to 100 cigarettes a day. Can you imagine?
100 a day? That's staggering.
It really is. And he'd tried everything to quit. Nothing worked. He even had serious health problems because of it. Varicose veins, melasma. But then he had this breakthrough, discovered what he called his easy method. And you can feel how that deep personal struggle shaped his unique approach. It's empathetic, but also kind of revolutionary.
That personal angle definitely gives it weight, doesn't it? Makes it feel authentic. Yeah. So, okay, if we're going to understand why he claims quitting is, as he puts it, ridiculously easy, we have to start with his most fundamental point. What is it that smoking isn't actually doing for us, according to Carr?
Right. He hits you with what he calls the beautiful truth right away. Smoking does absolutely nothing beneficial for you, zero. And for a smoker, that's probably pretty jarring to hear because we're all sort of conditioned to think there's some enjoyment, some benefit.
Yeah, the pleasure aspect.
Exactly. But Carr argues that perceived pleasure, it's just an illusion. It's not real enjoyment. It's simply the temporary relief from the withdrawal pangs caused by the last cigarette. He uses this brilliant analogy. It's like wearing tight shoes just to obtain the pleasure you feel when you take them off.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That really paints a picture.
Doesn't it? You create the discomfort just so you can feel the pleasure of relieving it.
Right.
And you mistake that relief for actual pleasure.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Like, how many other tight shoes are we wearing in life? Habits or beliefs we cling to. Just mistaking that temporary relief for something genuinely good. So, okay, this illusion of pleasure, it must extend to other common reasons people smoke too, like stress relief.
Oh, definitely. It's kind of amazing when you see how he breaks down every single supposed benefit. Stress. He says smoking doesn't relieve stress at all. It actually increases anxiety because you become dependent on it. It erodes your confidence, your courage, makes you feel like you need it to cope.
So it actually makes you less able to handle stress on your own.
Precisely. And boredom. He just says boredom is a frame of mind. Smoking doesn't cure boredom. It actually makes you lethargic, so you avoid doing energetic things that might actually help.
So counterintuitive. What about concentration? That's a big one. People light up to focus.
Yeah, another illusion, he says flat out. Cigarettes do not help concentration. He argues they actually worsen it.
How?
Well, partly by reducing oxygen flow to the brain, but also by constantly creating those little background withdrawal pangs, that nagging feeling, which is inherently distracting.
Okay, that makes sense. And relaxation, the classic cigarette break to unwind.
Nope. Nicotine's a stimulant. It increases your pulse rate. You're physically less relaxed when smoking, not more. It just feels like relaxation because you're momentarily satisfying the nicotine craving.
So basically, every perceived positive is just fixing the negative the cigarette itself created.
You got it. Which leads to his really powerful line. Cigarettes do not fill a void. They create it.
Right. And that just begs the question, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. If smoking does literally nothing positive, why on earth do people keep doing it? It seems irrational.
It is irrational, and that's his point. He says there are two main reasons smokers stay trapped. First, nicotine addiction itself. He describes nicotine as maybe the fastest addictive drug known. It can get you hooked from just one cigarette.
Just one.
Yeah. But, and this is crucial, he emphasizes the withdrawal isn't primarily this awful physical agony people fear. It's mostly mental. It's more like this persistent, nagging feeling of emptiness or restlessness, like something's just missing. And the smoker learns to think only a cigarette can fix that feeling.
Okay, so it's less about physical pain and more about that psychological discomfort, that itch.
Exactly. And the second pillar holding up the addiction is what he calls brainwashing.
Brainwashing. That sounds intense.
It is. He calls it the most subtle, sinister trap that man and nature have combined to devise.
Okay, wow. How does that work? How are we brainwashed?
Well, think about how society subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, conditions us. Historically, advertising linked smoking to glamour, success, rebellion, relaxation, confidence.
Right, those old movie images of the cool hero lighting up.
Exactly. Even if direct advertising is restricted now, those associations linger culturally. We absorb these messages, often unconsciously, that create these false positive links with smoking. And he also points out the hypocrisy in society. Governments make huge amounts of money from tobacco taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how society views smoking versus, say, heroin addiction. Smoking kills vastly more people every year, yet the perception and stigma are often quite different. It's a strange disconnect fueled by this conditioning.
That is a really interesting point about the societal hypocrisy. It sort of normalizes it despite the danger.
It does. And for the smoker caught in all this, Carr describes it as a kind of self-imposed slavery. You're constantly driven by this craving for something that gives no real benefit, and increasingly you feel ashamed about it too, especially as society becomes more anti-smoking.
It really does sound like a trap with no upside. Constant craving, no real reward, plus shame. So, if willpower isn't the answer, if just gritting your teeth and fighting the urge is the wrong way, how do you get out of this sinister trap? Carr talks about his easy way, which is very different from what he calls the willpower method.
Exactly. He argues the traditional willpower method is fundamentally flawed because it frames quitting as a sacrifice. You're focused on what you think you're giving up, so you feel deprived, resentful. It becomes this constant battle against desire, which is exhausting and often fails.
Because you still secretly believe the cigarette holds some value.
Precisely. And that's also why he says cutting down is such a dangerous trap. His words are pretty stark. It is our attempts to cut down that keep us trapped all our lives.
Why is cutting down so bad? It sounds like a reasonable approach.
Because it keeps the addiction alive. It prolongs the agony. You're constantly thinking about cigarettes, rationing them, reinforcing the idea that they're precious and desirable. It doesn't break the mental dependency. It often strengthens it.
Okay, that makes sense. It keeps you focused on the cigarette. And what about the idea of having just one, like after you've quit for a while?
The just one cigarette myth. He is absolutely adamant about this. He says, just one cigarette is a myth you must get out of your mind. There is, according to Carr, no such thing as just one cigarette, because nicotine addiction is so fast that one cigarette immediately reawakens the little monster, his term for the nicotine addiction in your body, and restarts the entire cycle. You're instantly back in the trap.
Right back to square one. Okay, so no cutting down, no just one. What are the instructions for the easy way then? It sounds like it's mostly about understanding these illusions.
That's a huge part of it. Once you understand, the practical steps are surprisingly simple. First, make a final decision. Decide you will never smoke again. Not try not to smoke, but decide you won't.
A firm, final decision.
Yes. Second, don't mope about it. Maintain a positive frame of mind. Celebrate your decision. Feel good about it. You're not losing anything. You are gaining something incredible. You need to internalize his message that you have absolutely nothing to lose and so much to gain.
So it's about shifting your perspective from loss to gain.
Completely. You're not giving up smoking. You're escaping addiction. You're achieving, as he puts it, marvelous positive gains. Things like better health, more energy, more money, peace of mind, confidence, courage, self-respect, real happiness, and freedom.
It sounds fantastic. But for someone who's maybe tried and failed many times, that fear must be immense. The fear that life just won't be as good without cigarettes. The fear of feeling deprived forever. How does Carr address that deep-seated fear?
He argues that the fear itself is part of the trap, part of the brainwashing. He says, it is basically fear that keeps us smoking. The fear that life will never be quite as enjoyable, and the fear of feeling deprived. But he insists this fear is based on the illusion that cigarettes provide genuine pleasure or support. Once you see through that illusion, you realize the only thing you're giving up is the addiction itself, the constant need, the withdrawal pangs, the slavery. When you truly understand that, the fear just evaporates. Because what's there to fear about being free? As he says, once you get it, it's so nice to be free, it flips the script from deprivation to liberation.
And that shift from fear to freedom, that seems absolutely key.
It is, and he backs it up by talking about the very real, tangible gains you experience almost immediately. Financially, for instance. He calculated, and this was some time ago, so it's likely more now, a smoker could easily spend over 40,000 pounds in their lifetime on cigarettes. That's a staggering amount of money, literally going up in smoke. It's completely irrational when you step back.
40,000 pounds?
Yeah.
Wow, that puts it in perspective. And health, obviously.
obviously. Though he notes smokers are masters of denial about health risks, he uses this dark but effective analogy. He compares it to the man who, having fallen off a 100-story building, is heard to say as he passes the 50th floor, "So far, so good."
Oof.
Yeah.
That hits him. Just because the crash hasn't happened yet.
Right. But Carr promises immediate benefits. Within just 3 weeks, he says, you'll notice improvements in energy, confidence, breathing, taste, smell. Your whole sense of well-being starts to return.
And beyond the physical, what about the psychological benefits? You mentioned freedom.
Yes. Freedom from those sinister black shadows, as he calls them, the guilt, the self-loathing knowing you're harming yourself, the insecurity of needing a crutch. Getting rid of that constant background noise of anxiety is huge. It's mental liberation.
So it really is about seeing it not as a sacrifice, but as escaping something genuinely negative on all fronts: financial, physical, psychological.
Okay, so let's say someone is convinced. They understand the illusions, they make the decision. Are there still pitfalls during that initial period after stopping? Carr calls it the withdrawal period, even though it's mostly mental.
Yes, definitely. He cautions against a few common traps. One big one is mistaking the nicotine withdrawal pangs, that slight emptiness or restlessness, for hunger. They can feel similar.
So people might start eating more, thinking they're hungry.
Exactly. And while eating might distract you momentarily, it doesn't satisfy the underlying nicotine craving, which is very mild and passes quickly if you recognize it for what it is. Another major trap is using substitutes: nicotine gum, patches, sweets, anything like that.
Why are substitutes bad? Aren't they supposed to help? Carr argues they're counterproductive because there is no substitute for nicotine that truly works long-term without just perpetuating addiction in another form. Using substitutes reinforces the idea that you need something, that you're making a sacrifice. It keeps the little monster alive, just feeding it differently. It prolongs the process instead of making a clean break.
Okay, so no substitutes, just write out the pangs, recognizing they're temporary signs of the addiction dying.
Right, and understand that the feeling of total freedom, what he sometimes calls the moment of revelation, might not happen instantly. It might take a few weeks, maybe around 3, for it to fully sink in that you're truly free and don't miss it at all. But the key is, you are free from the moment you put out that last cigarette. Don't wait for a feeling. Know that the decision itself made you free.
That's important. Don't wait for validation, trust the decision. What about seeing other people smoke? That must be hard initially.
Yes. The temptation from watching others. His advice here is quite striking. He says, don't envy other smokers. Pity them.
Pity them.
Yes. Believe me, they need your pity because they are the ones still stuck in the trap, still slaves to the addiction, still suffering the illusions you've escaped. Seeing it that way changes your whole perspective on them.
Instead of envy, you feel compassion or even relief that you're not them anymore.
Exactly. And one final trap he mentions is procrastination. Thinking, now isn't the right time. Maybe you're stressed, maybe you have vacation coming up. He says, the real trap is the belief that now isn't the right time. There will always be some reason to put it off. The right time is always right now.
Just do it. Rip off the Band-Aid, so to speak, once you've understood the method.
Pretty much. So when you boil it all down, Allen Carr's message is that quitting smoking isn't about enduring pain or using massive willpower. It's actually about liberation. It's about understanding the trick, the nature of the addiction, the brainwashing, and once you see the trick clearly, escaping is not only possible, it's relatively easy and even joyful. You dismantle the illusions and the desire disappears.
That really does flip the script on how most people think about quitting smoking. It's less about fighting an urge and more about realizing the urge is based on a falsehood. So what does this all mean for us listening to this? If smoking, something so common and accepted for so long, is potentially this sinister trap, this self-imposed slavery built on illusion, well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other traps might we be caught in? Things we do or believe simply because of societal conditioning, or, fear of the unknown, fear of what life might be like without them. If breaking free from something as powerful as nicotine addiction can bring, as Carr describes it, so much joy and clarity, just imagine the possibilities if you started applying that kind of critical thinking, that questioning of illusions, to other areas of your life. Something to definitely think about.